Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 7 must-start and must-sit wide receivers for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we'll begin by discussing my must-start wide receivers of the week, and then about halfway into the video, we're going to be pivoting into my must-sit wide receivers based upon their matchups for week number 11. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 11 must-start and must-sit wide receivers. We begin with the must-start category, headlined by Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Jumbo Jets this week in MetLife. Jaylen Waddle has been a complete and utter target monster for the Miami Dolphins thus far this season, accumulating 85 total targets in the first 10 games of the season. Last week up against the Baltimore Ravens was a very interesting game for the Miami Dolphins, both offensively as well as defensively. They looked really good up against the Houston Texans the week before, but how much weight can you put into a game up against the Houston Texans? Most teams could play great up against the Houston Texans, so the Miami Dolphins basically shook the whole fucking earth when they ended up beating the Baltimore Ravens last week. But despite them beating the Baltimore Ravens, we saw that Jaylen Waddle only had 4 receptions on 6 targets for 61 yards in that game. Now, there was much confusion at the quarterback position in this game because Jacoby Brissett starts the game, despite the fact that Tua Tagovailoa appears, at least, that he would be fine to start. And then Jacoby Brissett gets hurt in the game. And then Tua gets in the game, and he's the starting quarterback. And then Jacoby Brissett, out of nowhere, just appears to be perfectly healthy, and he wants to go back in the game, but Coach Brian Flores shuts him down, and Tua Tagovailoa is the starter throughout the game. In that game, they were also without Devontae Parker, as well as Will Fuller, which is going to be the exact same thing this week, as to where we could see him get a lot of targets up against the Jumbo Jets. They're going up against the Jets. The Jets defense ranks dead last in pass DVOA. The Jets defense is atrocious up against the pass. They're not very good up against the run either, but a real focal point of the Dolphins in this game is going to be the passing attack and relentlessly passing the ball up against the Jets. And I believe, as long as this is not some type of trap game where the Dolphins are riding so high because they beat the Baltimore Ravens and now they just play like shit up against the Jets, I believe that Jaylen Waddle has the potential to be a top 12 wide receiver in this game up against the defense that ranks last in pass DVOA. Next up, we move to Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Hunter Renfrow is clearly, at this point in the season, the #1 wide receiver on the roster for the Las Vegas Raiders. Last week up against the Kansas City Chiefs, he saw 7 receptions on 9 targets for 46 yards, as well as having a touchdown. He is currently riding a hot streak, as he has scored a touchdown once in each of the last 2 games. This trend could easily continue in this game up against the Cincinnati Bengals, as I feel as though this could be a high-scoring back-and-forth affair between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Raiders ended up bringing in Deshaun Jackson off of the waivers, and everyone was like, you know what, that's going to be a great move for the Raiders. He fills that Henry Ruggs role, and then we see Derek Carr throw him the ball once, and this motherfucker, instead of walking directly into the end zone, basically tries to do that Bo Jackson thing you used to be able to do in the old video game where you just run backwards, then you go left and then right. You could basically just run around everyone. He thought it was a fucking video game, and instead of scoring a touchdown, he just hands the ball back to the Kansas City Chiefs. It is very clear that Hunter Renfrow is the #1 guy on this team, and I believe he sees a bunch of usage this week up against the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, I think it is entirely possible that he continues that touchdown streak this week up against the Bengals, so I love Hunter Renfrow. My next must-start wide receiver is Jarvis Landry of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Detroit Lions this week at home in Cleveland. Jarvis Landry has been a huge disappointment all year long in terms of fantasy football. Aside from a very strong performance in week number 1 of the season up against the Kansas City Chiefs, besides that, he has failed to eclipse 10 half PPR points in all those games. 10 half PPR points. Jarvis Landry is typically known as that super safe wide receiver. You draft him, sure, maybe he doesn't have this immense upside, but every single week he's going to be super safe, and that has not been the case all season long. Last week, in a poor showing up against the Patriots, he had 4 receptions on 5 targets for just 26 yards. Though, if there was ever going to be a time for a get-right game, it would be this week up against the Detroit Lions, who rank 28th in pass DVOA. Without Odell Beckham Jr., there is not going to be much competition for targets in this offense, so Landry should be able to light up the stat sheet this week up against a piss-poor Detroit Lions defense. But before we get on in to the must-sit wide receivers, I'd like to let you guys know that we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NFL season to bring you guys some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited-time offer, which gets you guys 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo. Sign up for an account via the link down below. Deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest, and we'll reach out to you via email with your coupon. If you need immediate access, that's okay as well. All you got to do is email support@awesemo.com, and we'll get you set up immediately. You can also claim a free $10 below that can be used to enter any Yahoo contest. Please make sure to use our DFS tools and projections specifically designed for Yahoo to give your guys the best shot at winning big. Please make sure you guys do check out Yahoo Fantasy, link down below in the description. Now we begin the must-sit category, headlined by Mike Williams, wide receiver of the LA Chargers, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. And frankly, I am sick and fucking tired of Mike Williams. Over the last 4 weeks, Mike Williams has been nothing but a disappointment, failing to score over 7 half PPR points in all 4 of those games. In those last 4 games, he has just 10 receptions on 21 targets for 136 yards, and there is 0 signs of anything turning around. Nothing is showing me when I watch these games that maybe Mike Williams is just in a slump. That, oh, maybe he's going to creep out of this slump and he'll be just fine. Nothing is showing me that. Everything is showing me that Mike Williams is down in the dumps and he's not getting out. While the Chargers have been playing great, Justin Herbert has looked all right, Keenan Allen has been performing, nothing tells me that Mike Williams is going to get better. This guy was one of the top wide receivers, basically an elite wide receiver earlier on in the season for fantasy football, and has been a disaster ever since. So until we see signs of a turnaround for Mike Williams, I believe he is best left on your bench. Next must-sit wide receiver is Brandon Aiyuk of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville this week. Aiyuk has been one of the most frustrating players in all of fantasy football this season. It seemed as though he finally escaped the metaphorical doghouse that was put on him by Kyle Shanahan in week number 8 up against the Chicago Bears, and everyone's clapping. Hallelujah. He finally escapes. And then, based upon last week's game up against the Rams, where they are laying the pipe to the LA Rams defense, where they are putting on hurt, they are doing damage to that LA Rams defense, Brandon Aiyuk is basically irrelevant, having 4 targets for 3 receptions and 26 yards. This is a game where we should have easily seen Brandon Aiyuk flourish, and instead of flourishing, he basically flushes your fantasy team down the goddamn toilet. Until we see more consistency out of Aiyuk, just like with Mike Williams, I do not feel comfortable at all playing Brandon Aiyuk. Final must-sit wide receiver of today's video is Kenny Golladay, Kenny Bones of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Golladay appears to be good to go, as he is not on the injury report this week, and that's great. In week number 9, up against the Raiders, he had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 28 yards. The issue with Kenny Golladay is not that Kenny Golladay magically turned to shit going from the Lions to the Giants. That's not what happened. He didn't just instantly lose all of his fucking skill. But the issue is that he just doesn't get enough usage. And with the emergence of Kadarius Toney, the usage is not just going to magically go back to Kenny Golladay. He's basically trapped in a shitty scenario with a quarterback in Daniel Jones who isn't all that great. So Kenny Golladay is almost at this point in the season a guy who was probably drafted in like the 6th, 7th round of your fantasy drafts, a guy who I was very high on in the offseason, is basically droppable. He's basically unrosterable because of this Giants offense, and because Golladay isn't the clear alpha wide receiver that a lot of us thought he was going to be going into the offseason. So thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. I love you guys all, and as always, goodbye.